Welcome to the Week 5 Columbia Coaches Football Show presented by Amity Hall, Uptown. I'm Lance Meadow here on GoColumbiaLions.com. As Columbia gets set to resume Ivy League play, it's homecoming. They will welcome the Penn Quakers to town. As always, we're joined by head coach John Poppe. John, appreciate the time as always. Let's recap, unfortunately, the setback against Lehigh, 31-7, final non-conference game. I know you reflected on a lot after the game, and one of the things that you had emphasized was the third down scenarios. And I want to go back to the run game, 24 carries for 39 yards. How much did the inability to pound the football put you in a precarious spot in terms of downs and distances throughout really the remainder of the game?
Yeah, any time, right, you're not getting the run game established, you're going to present it's going to be a problem for when you play good football teams. And, that's a combination of us as coaches, maybe not getting the numbers, the angles we need to establish a consistent running game. Sometimes it's, a back missing a cut here, a lineman falling off a block too soon, not straining enough to finish. And so all those combination things led to that statistical kind of deal there. And unfortunately for us, we've got to be much better versus this front, which is shown to be very physical up front and stout up front. And that's the task at hand for us to make sure we're in the right formations, right? We got the right personnel groupings to be able to exploit this front, and now get to the second and third levels with our backs and our playmakers.
I was looking over the third downs in terms of distance. You were 2 of 14, but to add further context, 9 of the 14 were for 8 yards or more, which, as you can attest to, dramatically changes things. How much did then the game flow, John, become, okay, Lehigh knows what we're going to do. We've got to drop back and throw, and it changes your approach on offense in terms of how far you can dig in terms of the deep tricks that maybe you have up your sleeve here or there.
Yeah, and that's where even the pass game can help the run game, right? We talked about getting the ball in the perimeter. I thought we took a step forward that versus Princeton, and then maybe took another step back versus Lehigh. And that's where we have to trust getting the ball in space sometimes, and whether we have it all blocked up and maybe our ball carrier makes a guy miss. Like that, we have to do other things than just rely on our wide zone or our duo scheme or our gap scheme to create those third and manageables. Right, we have to do other things to get these defenses to run and put them in uncomfortable situations, and that's where we just didn't do enough of to make that third and manageable for us. And again, ball carrier is not falling forward for an extra 2 yards, right? That you want to go from 3rd and 4 instead now you're in 3rd and 8 because a ball carrier makes a cut too wide, right? And it's that sometimes small of a difference.
The little things add up. And that's pretty much what you're laying out. I like to talk to you about turning points in games each and every week. And I look back at last week. You get them to turn it over on downs after they had scored on their first possession. Unfortunately, not able to capitalize on that. And then, of course, on their first possession in the third quarter, they hit the home run to Jamil. And that drastically changes the game from 17-0 to 24-0. When you look back at those two series that I just laid out, how much do you think that changed at least the trajectory of the game in your mind?
Yeah, anytime you're down 3 scores, right, or 3 scores and 3 2-point conversions to a top 10 team, a really good football team, you're playing from a disadvantage, a huge disadvantage. And that's where when you have your third quarterback, and Xander Menepace made good decisions in terms of his reads and progressions and was putting us in okay spots. We just, as receivers, maybe didn't get to the spot in time, or we cut a route too short, now we're there too soon, which happened on one of the first third downs. And that's where it forces you to a world of uncomfortability or discomfort, and we've got to be better and still find a way to execute and run our offense. And that's, disappointing to me that we weren't able to, and besides the explosive play to Titus, where it's a great individual effort, really sustain a lot of things throughout the course of a game.
Not a lot of familiarity with the opponent you went up against last week. You had not played them since 2013. Now you go back to the Ivy League slate. But the reason I bring that up, John, is you're going up against a team, and we're going to get more into this a little bit later on, but they have an elite wide receiver. You just played a team who had a receiver that had nearly 200 yards, and you also played a quarterback in Hayden Johnson that led the team in rushing, and Penn has a quarterback cut from that cloth. How much maybe the timing of the matchup against Lehigh helped better prepare your team for some similarities that Penn presents?
Yeah, the dangerous offensive playmakers. And I think that's going to be the case as we continue to progress through this season. Everyone's going to have really good skill players, and we've just got to be better with our eye discipline and angles to the football and gang tackle. And that's what prevents explosive plays from happening. Really just doing your job, being where you're supposed to be, and having great eyes, and then finishing with eyes through the thighs, as we talk about when you're tackling guys and wrapping the right way. And so if our defense does that, I have all the confidence in the world that after what we did last week, facing those playmakers. There's no suddenness of, oh my God, this guy's faster than I thought. I think we played some fast players to date, and now it's just we got to go do our jobs to the best of our ability and see how the chips fall, as they say.
John, you can learn a lot about a team after a performance like that last week. I'm sure the guys are irritated, flustered, ready to get back on the field. What has the dialogue been like over the last few days when you've reviewed the film, and how hungry is this group as they now resume Ivy League play to right the ship and correct some of those little things that you pointed out that could accumulate over the course of a game?
Yeah, I mean, these guys are, like I said earlier, attacking practice each and every day the right way. And it's really on us as coaches to make sure that we're not letting the little things go unnoticed. That's where we have to make sure we're making those small improvements week to week and not making the same mistakes that we made last week and not making the same mistakes we made versus Princeton. So that's really where we as coaches have to be better in the moment of making sure things just aren't being saved for film, because then maybe you forget about it. Maybe you glance over it because you're focused on this other thing now. We have to make sure that with especially some of our younger guys who haven't been in these positions before are getting coached in the moment. And that's really been a big focus for this week. And our young people have been awesome. They have. And that's why it's been frustrating, I think, for all of us, because we thought we'd be in a much different place, and we're not. And that's where now you have to do something about it, as it's never going to be easy. That's why I love the competitiveness of this team, and they're not satisfied in any way, shape, or form, and we hope to put a great product on the field on Saturday.
I can tell you sound like you're on the sideline right now. I'm ready to suit up if you need me. I don't know how much help I'd be, though, under the circumstances. We'll step aside. When we come back, we'll now turn our attention to the Penn Quakers, who come in at 3-1 on the season. The ins and outs of how Columbia matches up with Penn. It's homecoming, as this is the Week 5 Columbia Football Coaches Show presented by Amity Hall Uptown.
Amity Hall Uptown is the premier sports destination on the Upper West Side and the official home to Columbia University Athletics. Located just 951 steps from campus, Amity Hall is and will always be your home away from home.
Lance Meadow back here with you on GoColumbiaLions.com. It is the Week 5 Columbia Football Coaches Show presented by Amity Hall Uptown. As the Lions now from here on out, it's all Ivy League foes. Homecoming, it's the Penn Quakers. I want to start, though, with your personnel first, John. We talked about in the first part of this program that Xander Menepace got the start. You were banged up with Chase Goodwin and Caleb Sanchez. Now you get Sanchez back this week. How does that change the operation of your offense and what you can do in terms of the varied packages, even with some of the other quarterbacks being mixed in?
Yeah, I mean, Caleb is a proven starter, right? He won 2 games for us, helped us win the championship last year. And, Caleb has an impeccable sense of timing. And Xander Menepace, that was his first game and probably competitive game in a long time in terms of running the whole offense. And, this is where we get a chance to have Caleb back and do the things he's great at, and that's as coaches. I think there's a comfortability in calling plays for Caleb and structuring a game plan for Caleb because we know what he can do very, very well. And so we're excited to see what Caleb can do on Saturday, being healthy and finally able to compete for us.
You went up against a very tough Lehigh front in the last contest. Overall, solid defense. There's a reason why they were a top 10 ranked team. What does Penn showcase you in comparison to Lehigh? There's a team that's 3-1. Their lone loss, coincidentally, was against the team you just played last week.
Yeah, Penn, not dissimilar from Lehigh. They're staying quarters coverage, with their guys. They'll play a little bit more man. They'll bring some pressure, just like Lehigh did. And so we've just got to be great in our one-on-one matchups across the board. And that's O-line, that's running backs in protection, that's running backs when they run the ball in open space, maybe one-on-one with a safety if we get that opportunity. And that's really what's going to help change the game in our favor, is really making sure as an offense we're straining to finish versus our one-on-one matchups. And so they do a great job being strong and stout up front. Their linebackers, led by John Lista, can run sideline to sideline. They got a converted receiver, Jaden Drayton, playing corner for him, who shows the athletic ability to be a very, very good cover corner in this league. So this is going to be a challenge from here on out. Like as we said probably previously, every team we play can beat us, and we like to think we can beat any of these guys on our schedule if we just play our football.
So last season you beat them 23-17 on the road. The quarterback was Aiden Sayin, who's very different than Liam O'Brien, who was the backup last year. And, John, he didn't take over as the starter until after you played Penn. So this is your first opportunity in person to see Liam O'Brien. I guess what jumps out to me is They don't run the ball a lot compared to they pass, but he does lead the team with 43 rushes. So what is the key in terms of the discipline for your defense to be aware of when he does take off, what he's looking to do under those circumstances?
Yeah, we've got to be great from a front standpoint. Our defensive line, when we're rushing the passer, to not rush by him, right, in open lanes where he's got a lot of space to run. We've got to be great at closing to him, right, being very disciplined with our eyes and our angles. He's done a great job of exposing defenses that like to be aggressive in their angles, meaning running over the top, and he just cuts it back. I mean, there's runs versus Dartmouth, there's runs versus Lehigh, where he cuts the ball back across the entire field due to poor, pursuit. And that's where we have to be great in order to reduce some of those those rush yards. And he does a great job in those short yard situations for him as well. And that's where our defense has to make sure we're hitting every gap the right way with violence and great hand placement and hopefully make a play.
And then, of course, when he chooses to throw the ball, he's got Jared Richardson, who leads the Ivy League in all of the key statistical categories in terms of receiving. You've seen him up close and personal. It's nothing new. He's actually tops in the nation with over 117 receiving yards per game. So the numbers jump off the page. What is important when you go up against such a great athlete, a guy that can make above the X's and O's plays, what your secondary's approach has to be, especially in the wake of what we just spoke about, the plays that Jeffrey Jamil made against Lehigh in terms of last week?
Yeah, it's make the outstanding catch. Just don't make it easy, right? And that's where we have to be more multiple in our coverages, right? Because sometimes getting the quarterback off the same page as the receivers is part of it too. And I think they do a great job of getting him the ball in different ways, right? The screen game, the access game, meaning just taking a quick hitch and letting him do his thing as an athlete. I mean, there's a catch and run versus Lehigh. He breaks 3 tackles. And again, that goes back to tackling eyes and running your feet on contact. And that's where I think I've seen him take a jump from last year. It's really those little moments where he's able to take that 5-yard ball and now he's running, making a guy miss. And so we've got to be great there. And you can't just double him all game because then BZ Owens comes into play. Then Julian Stokes comes into play and some other supporting cast guys. So we just got to be playing our game in terms of physicality from a physical standpoint and challenging routes and challenging these receivers, not just letting them run down the field, free.
I'm glad you brought up Julian Stokes, though I'm sure it's not fun in terms of the film session, but our audience should understand. I mean, he's a jack of all trades. He helps them on offense, but there's a game where special teams, John, seems to come up in the conversation. He's one of the best in the nation in terms of returns for punt as well as kickoff average. What do you have to do to make sure that, and maybe this is too simplistic, that he doesn't damage the game this coming weekend?
Yeah, I mean, kickoffs, kick it out of the end zone, right? Make sure it's not touchback. And even sometimes that doesn't matter. I mean, there's a clip literally on film where the off returner is telling him not to return it, and he brings it out. And he returns it for, 45-plus yards. So he's going to do what he does. And that's why he's a playmaker, and he's a phenomenal, space player. The punt side of things, he's not going to always fair catch. He's going to take risks and take challenges. And because of his stature, I mean, he's 5'7", he's built really strong. Like, you gotta wrap him up. You gotta gang tackle him. You gotta approach him. So it comes down to the punt game side of things. Our punter doing a great job with hang time, right? Not out kicking the coverage, right? And our coverage team doing a great job getting down there with speed and creating, right, those moments where he can't just catch the ball and run north. We had to make him at least go side to side to buy time for pursuits to create those angles, as we talked about earlier, just in defensive football.
Yeah, disrupt his ability and trajectory to get to the end zone, and he's already returned the punt on the season, so we know that he can change field position and put points on the board. Before we wrap up, it is homecoming, and given that this is your first Ivy League home game, I know when it comes to football, John, you can use the crowd to your advantage, right? And you've even pointed to previous games where maybe you fell into a hole. It can take the crowd out of it. It goes without saying you want to get off to a fast start. I mean, that's question 101. We don't necessarily need to go over that. But how much do you think you can feed into the environment of what Saturday's game presents, given this could be the start of turning the corner against Penn?
Yeah, we do have to start fast. We do. We have to earn their engagement as a crowd and hopefully get them on our side early to, force maybe some hard count stuff where they jump off sides because they can't hear. So that's really where, in my mind, this could be an awesome environment for us, our team, our program to play in and playing a great opponent who is doing a great job as, a football team. And so for us, we have to earn that right for a crowd. But from the get-go, if they're into it, they're yelling, they're screaming and creating some chaos, that's never a bad thing for us as a team.
John, always a pleasure.
Lance,
Best of luck
appreciate
this
you.
weekend.
Awesome.
You got it. It's going to be Columbia and Penn, the homecoming game. Kickoff will be 1:30 p.m. Eastern at Lawrence A. Wien Stadium. You can catch the game on ESPN+. I'll have the call with Sean Fitzgerald. As this has been the Columbia football coaches Week 5 show, it is presented by Amity Hall Uptown.